For a jungler, the early game is without a doubt the most important time in a game of League of Legends, as it is where you can have the most influence, dictating the direction of the game and ultimately if you win or lose. Hello everyone, my name is Coach Leo. I am a former pro player and challenger jungler, and in today's video I'm going to be explaining concepts that will allow you to consistently maximize the potential of your first clear, setting you up for the rest of the game. Step 1, the pre-game plan. Goal: set yourself up to get early kills and make sure we are pathing towards the side of the map that we think is going to have the most action. Now, before we even get started on how we're going to achieve that goal, we need to firstly lock in. Now, this simply means when all 10 champions get locked in at champion select, we need to remove any distraction that will take your attention and focus away from the game. This means you need to turn off Netflix on your second monitor, get off screen share with your friends, get off Discord, lock in, and be present for the game plan that we're about to create. Where can I get a kill? This simple question is one of, if not the most important things that you can ask yourself while you are loading into a game. The way you can find out where the highest chance of getting a kill is by following VGM: volatility, gank setup, and mobility. Starting off with volatility. This means we think the champions are going to be fighting, trading, poking, or there is some instant death ability. So for example, Xerath vs Brand support is volatile. Why? Because they are high damage poke champions with 0 sustain. Blitz versus Pyke is volatile. Why? Because if a hook lands, it may mean instant death. Now, Seraphine versus Sona is typically not volatile. Why is that? Because they have low damage and have sustain. Another telling way we can know if something may be volatile is runes and summoner spells. Defensive setups such as Cho'Gath taking Grasp and D-Shield provide him sustain, meaning generally he will be pretty healthy. On the contrary, a Riven with Electrocute and Ignite is telling us she may want to trade a lot and all in. Now, this may take some games and some experience to know which lanes are going to be volatile. So if you are unsure, leave it as a question mark, move on, and reflect after the game to grow your champion knowledge. Gank setup. When talking about gank setup, this is in regard to our team's CC abilities. Simply put, the easier the CC is to land, the more reliable it is. And that's the main thing we're thinking of in terms of gank setup. Annie stun is a perfect example of a very reliable gank setup. It's point and click. Whereas Xerath stun is somewhat unreliable. It's a predictable skill shot that travels slowly. Sometimes abilities we think should be reliable don't go as planned and our team misses or blunders in the gank. When this happens, it's very important to not create a false bias off one game or one gank, and think of every new game as objectively as possible. Mobility. For this category, we want to consider the enemy champion's mobility. Do they have a dash, blink, hop, or speed up? The less mobile they are, the higher percent chance to kill. For example, a Zed with his W up, even if he is overextended, is still pretty hard to kill, whereas a Syndra in the same position could be pretty easily chased down. The final note on mobility is that, again, we must consider summoner spells. A Ghost Flash Darius is way harder to kill than, for example, a Flash Ignite Darius. Priority. Does it matter? The final note on the pre-game plan that I want to mention, and that some of you may be wondering, what about priority? Shouldn't we consider pathing to where we have push? The importance of pathing towards priority is a little overblown and is not something to consider before your first clear. The fact that your laners or enemy laners can technically move whenever, regardless of the wave state, is something not worth factoring in and is too inconsistent to predict, especially in low elo. Priority only becomes a consistent factor in an MMR above Diamond as laners start to understand their matchups. Now, in saying this, our goal is not to predict priority, but we still need to respect it. If we are pathing to bot and the enemy has push, instead of going into river for scuttle and dying to the enemy bot lane and jungle, respect the priority and recall for top scuttle. The jungle matchup. Can he invade? Can I invade? This is something you want to ask yourself right after going through VGM. The best offense or defense when it comes to jungle invades is being prepared, and for that we need to understand the most common types of invades that are available, which can happen at level 1, 2, and 3. The level 1 late invade on the enemy red, blue, or raptors. This is done by simply walking into either of these 3 enemy camps at 125 in-game time. The main intention being to steal camps and farm 3 quadrants of the jungle. The defender's counter. Warding or getting our team to ward our own buff opposite of where we're going to start. If you see the enemy jungler on that ward on your camp, you can choose to split map and vertical jungle by going straight to his jungle, or alternatively, you can match him level 2 and ping your laners to collapse on him. Level 2 red or raptors to enemy blue/gromp invade. Performed by starting our own Raptors, or red if you're playing a champion that can hop over walls, and immediately heading to the enemy blue side. The intention is to either kill the enemy jungler while he's on Gromp, or to steal blue and Gromp together. Defender's counter, warding the river bush or enemy Raptors at 1 minute. Make sure to not smite blue and save it for Gromp. If you see the enemy jungler early, skip Gromp and move straight to wolves and continue pathing down, making sure to pull the wolves towards mid. Even though you lose a camp, you are farming efficiently while the enemy jungler has to run back and forth. And lastly, the level 3 red side camp to enemy blue or red invade. This is done by doing your own red Krugs Raptors for level 3 and then meeting the enemy jungler on his blue or red with the intention to kill the enemy jungler. Defender's counter. If you start blue, skip red by doing Raptors into Krugs and then ward over the bush. This way the enemy jungler will again be farming inefficiently, having only done 3 camps while you have done 5. Then, if he starts the red, you can ping your laners to collapse and fight him. If you still don't feel confident or your laners are not responding, it's okay to give up the red. Now, if you're starting your red and you're pathing towards your blue side, the same response applies. Skip and ward your blue, as that is the timer the enemy jungler will be looking to strike. Do the Gromp instead and pull it upward. This one is more tricky as the enemy jungler has different angles to jump on you compared to the red side. Note, when it comes to jungle 1v1s and invades, the rule is whoever starts the buff loses. The reason for this is because they are the ones tanking the buff, using their spells, and the other jungler gets the first hit. So, now that we've completed the pregame plan and all of the necessary information has been considered, we can now move on to Step 2, the jungle clear. Goal: based on the information in your game, which path is going to give you the most gold and XP. The 3 general clears that you will be picking from are 3 camp into gank. This is done by clearing your 3 right side camps and looking for an early gank. This path can be highly effective on champions such as Rek'Sai, Elise, and Nunu, as they have abilities in their kits that make a gank high percentage. Deciding when to 3 camp gank will be explained further in the video. Level 1, 2, or 3 invades. As just discussed, you can choose one of these invades in your first clear. For the sake of keeping this guide concise, we are going to keep invades and counter invades to an introductory level. There are many different scenarios that can happen with invades, which we will not have time for in this video. And lastly, we have full clear. This is done by clearing all 6 camps as fast as you can. In general, this path is highly effective on every jungler, however, especially with champions that farm fast, want level 6 ASAP, or a mixture of both. Bonus clear, Raptor Start. This is done by starting Raptors as your first camp, then skipping red and heading to Krugs in order to maintain these camps spawning in a cycle together. This will be important as you will see later. After Krugs, we do our red and head to wolves, Gromp, blue, and scuttle if possible. Comparing to the other clears where you would maybe look to gank and then base, this clear actually continues by cross-ganking mid and heading back to Raptors and Krugs, which will give you level 5 and a much better buy. This is because by starting Raptors, they will spawn at around 4 minutes, which makes all of these timings work out very well. So, when should we be looking to do the Raptor Start? We should look to be doing this path in games we think both top and bot are going to be unlikely for us to get a kill. Additionally, starting Raptors is a very farm-focused path as we kill our Raptors and Krugs twice in the first clear. So, champions who love killing AoE camps early may look to benefit from this clear. For example, if we are playing a champion like Zac, Amumu, or Diana, and have concluded that pathing standard to top or bot is unlikely in us to get a kill, the Raptor path is a selfish way to get ahead early when there's not much going on. Are you tired of being stuck the same rank every season? Ready to join a community of like-minded junglers with proven results? The Jungle Academy is the ultimate resource to fast-track your potential, already having helped hundreds of players just like you achieve their ranked goals. Gain access to daily group VOD reviews run by a selection of challenger coaches like myself, champion guides, coaching VOD libraries, and much more. Not to mention an entire community of active players, including our expert coaches, happy to answer any questions and provide guidance throughout your journey, saving you hours of time and energy. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and join today. Note: before we move on, there are some important concepts we need to cover that will give us the tools and knowledge for step 3. League of Legends is not a black or white game. There is no secret formula saying do this, do that, and you'll win. Just because you're playing a champion like Lilia, who typically will play to her strength and full clear, mean that you are locked in to that full clear. The same way as Nunu, you are not locked in to maybe ganking level 3, despite having an insanely strong level 3 gank threat. So, even though in a majority of games a Lilia will full clear, does not mean we should miss opportunities for early kills, given they are high percentage. meaning likely to result in a kill. Likewise for a Nunu, who in a majority of games will look for a level 3 gank, does not mean we should never full clear and just force ganks even when they are unlikely to result in a kill. To summarize, not all gank percentages are made equal. A level 3 gank for a Nunu could be 90% likely to result in a kill, whereas the exact same gank for a Lilia is more like 30%. This is where you'll need to start understanding your champion's identity as well as the information the map is giving you. Naturally, there will be times where we decide to go for a low percentage gank and it fails. What's important is we learn from those mistakes and build on our champion mastery and experience. You may be wondering, why am I saying all of this? What is so bad about failing a gank? Your time as a jungler is a resource and quite a valuable one at that. You may not see it in the moment, but every failed gank, every misstep, every helping hand you give to losing lanes will have a butterfly effect on the map, resulting in missed opportunities elsewhere that would have actually been impactful to your team winning. Spare tempo versus regular tempo. This concept is a great way to view if you should or should not gank something. The basic idea is that you should only gank in your regular tempo if you are 95% sure it will be successful, meaning a kill. So what is it? At the end of a clear, you will have something called spare tempo, meaning you have free time while you're waiting for your next cycle of camps to spawn, assuming we just full cleared. This starting with either your Gromp or Krugs. If you have cleared well, typically you will finish Crab in River around 340 and have 30 seconds of spare tempo before your first spawning camp, which will be around 420. There are many ways you can spend this time without it being inefficient or a waste of time. Compared to if this was your regular tempo, where our camps are alive, it would be at the cost of your own gold and XP. So for example, during our spare tempo, you should be looking to use this time to gank a lane, burn summoner spells, place deep vision on enemy camps, or even help a lane push their wave out. As long as you are back at our first spawning camp and not overusing our spare tempo, unless it's for a kill, we will be keeping good regular tempo, also known to what's referred to as on tempo. Keep in mind, a mistake I commonly see junglers make is prioritizing tempo too much and instantly recalling after they kill Scuttle, not using the free time that they have and just waiting for their first 420 camp to spawn. This is inefficient and low impact. There are times where you can use that 30 seconds on yourself, for example, the Raptor Start, or basing instantly after your 6th camp as you are unable to contest the Scuttle with the intention to attack enemy Raptors, Krugs, or Gromp on spawn. This is also where we can reference back later in the video on the topic of Trinket usage and what to do with them if we didn't use them level 1. In our spare tempo, this is where we can look to place 1 or 2 deep wards on the enemy camps, ideally in the Raptor bush and over the wall on Krugs as we channel our recall. The information we will get from these wards is quite valuable as it will tell us what the enemy jungler will do in his next clear. For example, if we see him pathing on our ward towards the top side and we are pathing bot, we know with much more certainty to take the dragon. Or if he goes for any gank, we can ping and warn our team. Step 3. Where to stand level 1 and how to use your first trinket. Goal: find out where the enemy jungler is starting and or cover yourself from being invaded. Walk to the top river and guard the entrance. On blue side, this will be in the river bush. On red side, this will be just above the Raptor ramp/entrance. This is mostly about building good habits. Make sure to run out of base as soon as the gates lift, ensuring that the enemies don't get there before you. There are 5 champions on your team and everyone has a spot to stand, which makes a wall of vision. If the enemy team tries to invade or do something, we want to know. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand in League of Legends, our team doing what they're supposed to do is a pretty far reach. However, again, it's about our own improvement and building these good habits. This will matter much more when you climb to the higher ranks. You may be wondering, in the instance my 4 teammates are running headfirst into the enemy jungle to invade, what should I do? The answer is that you should actually always follow the crowd. Typically, the team with more synergy will come out ahead of these chaotic situations. However, once the invade either succeeds or fails, make sure you are back to your buff before it spawns. Basing before 1 minute will always ensure that is possible. You just need to be a bit careful re-entering the opposite side that you invaded on, as enemies could be waiting there. Level 1 Trinket usage. For our level 1 Trinket placement, there are 3 options. 1. Defensively to counter an invade, discussed previously in the video. 2. Offensively to gain information on the enemy jungler's path. 3. Holding our wards until the end of our clear, discussed earlier in the video. An offensive ward on either the enemy blue or Raptors is the most ideal way you can use your Trinket level 1, as it gives the most information on what the enemy jungler is doing during the first clear. However, in saying this, it can be the most dangerous to place, which is why we need to know a few details. Leading on from our just discussed invade scenario, this could be a good time to ping our team to help us get this ward. The location of the ward we are looking to place is ideally on this mark for Raptors. For blue, it's anywhere in this circle, making sure to place it after 1 minute. Why we do this will be explained further in the video. Now, if you did not invade and you were just in the standard starting position guarding, start assist pinging on your team and walk to either the enemy blue or Raptors at 50 seconds. This will give us enough time to place the ward after 1 minute and also make it back to start our buff on time. Note, if your team is unresponsive, you may need to consider if it is still safe to ward alone. Typically, you can still go for the Raptor ward without your team if the enemy champions are low threat, meaning little damage and CC level 1. Champions such as Sona, Kale, and Zac have a very little chance to kill you level 1, so it would be safe enough to ward. However, if you run into an instance where your team is unresponsive and you're versing threatening champions like Darius, Pyke, and Xin Zhao, it's best not to risk burning your flash or even dying to place this ward. In games where it is either too dangerous to place an offensive ward or we aren't worried about any types of invades from the enemy jungler, we are going to hold onto our ward and refer back to the topic of placing them deep in the enemy jungle during our spare tempo. Step 4. Minimap prompts and camera panning. Goal: to gather information on lane states and plan our next move. Now that we've finished all of that planning, it's time to finally get to the fun stuff, kill some jungle monsters, maybe some enemy players. We can take it easy from here, right? Well, kind of. You see, jungle is undoubtedly the most strategic role in the game. So it makes sense to be a great jungler, we need to be continuously planning our next move. It's a little bit like playing a game of chess against the enemy jungler, where you're both analyzing the board, the map, and based off that information, trying to make a correct move. If you don't consider or even recognize the information, you're going to find yourself blundering a bunch of moves. So, how do we gather information and how does it allow us to make good decisions? I'm sure we've all been in situations where things have been happening all over the map, leading up to a critical point where we need to make a decision. In that exact moment, we feel too overwhelmed by information or lack of, and as a result, crippled by indecision. The reason this happens is because A, we haven't been updating ourselves on the map's information over the course of its timeline. B, our mental stack is already at max capacity from just clearing camps, and we are unable to gather or digest any information without it being a detriment to our clear. This is why I'm putting such an emphasis on things like the pregame plan. It's freeing up thinking space. The next vital fundamental for our mental stack is champion mastery. We need to be able to clear camps effectively, basically just off muscle memory. The way we create muscle memory is by playing and clearing with that same champion over and over and over again. I'm talking at least 100 games. Now, to give our mental stack the best chance and prevent it from being overloaded, I want you to think about a timeline where there are 3 pieces of information happening throughout your first clear. The first piece of information is, as we start our clear, when we are on our blue, we see the enemy jungler starting his Raptors thanks to our level 1 ward. This tells us that he will end his clear bot side and can potentially contest bot scuttle or bot gank. It also tells us that his Raptors will spawn at 4 minutes. The second piece of information is, we see enemy mid get solo killed as we finish our red, meaning any gank opportunity for either jungler is off the table. And finally, the last piece of information is, as we walk to and during killing Krugs, we notice the enemy bot ducks into river and are full HP, meaning they place a ward and have prio for bot crab. Leading up to killing the Krugs, we make the decision that both bot gank and bot crab are bad options and instead instantly recall to attack the 4-minute spawning Raptors and topside crab with an item advantage. Because we are gathering the pieces of information as they happen on a timeline, we are able to maintain our mental stack and plan our move after Krugs accordingly. Whereas, if we don't have the information or try to process it all in 4 seconds, it makes sense that it will be very difficult even for experienced junglers to make the right call. From my experience coaching hundreds of players in the past year, players typically know what the correct play is once they have the information. Where they generally fall short is gathering the information and turning it into a plan ahead of time. And yes, this is a difficult skill to master, which is essentially the reason why the ceiling for jungle mastery is so high. Note: before we dive into information gathering further, I want to make it clear that if you are new/low elo or playing a full clear identity jungler like Karthus, the highest priority should always be to clear fast. There is a reason full clear to bot is such a consistent strategy, because you focus on tempo and not burger flipping ganks everywhere. I typically suggest against the formula of full clear to bot with zero thought, as I believe it can stunt your growth as a player in the long run. However, if you have no idea what to do, it is effective. Once your camp clearing becomes muscle memory, then you can start to gather information. There is no use knowing exactly what's happening on the map if you either cannot digest the information or are ending your first clear at 5 minutes. The first and primary way we can gather information is our minimap and the ally champion health bars above it. As we are clearing our camps, make sure to take short glances at the minimap. If champion icons start clashing and or ally health bars start dropping, this is a prompt to move your camera to that lane and investigate further. Remember, during our first 3 camps, we mostly want to be looking at lanes that are in proximity to us. For example, if I'm on the blue side starting my red buff, I want to mostly be watching mid and bot lane. Then as I cross to my wolves, this switches to mid and top. Something that massively helped me improve my information gathering was rebinding my F keys to keys that felt more comfortable, which are now Z, X, and C. In saying this, using or binding F keys is not a necessity. The most important thing is the information. How you get it does not matter, as there are plenty of pro players who even just click the minimap. Do whatever feels comfortable for you. Now, as to how much should we be camera panning, again, our priority is always to maintain our clear speed. However, as the game state can change quite quickly, the more you update, the better, as long as you are actually digesting what you're panning and not just spamming F keys out of habit. If you are new/low elo, prioritize firstly to take more frequent looks at the minimap prompts. Then, in the idle time between walking from camp to camp, practice camera panning. The third camp decision. As we get to our third camp, this is where we're going to use the information we have gathered and make a decision. Continue our full clear or go for a level 3 gank. Remember, we still only want to go for a gank in our regular tempo if it is high percentage. The main type of information we are looking for to assess kill threat are low health/mana, reliable ally gank setup and or the enemy's lack of mobility, enemy flash pinged in chat, wave position/state, and enemy body language. For this scenario, we are not going to be able to go in depth in terms of gank macro and micro for this video. However, in the instance we go for the bot gank and kill the enemy, we should immediately look to base in one of the bushes as soon as possible. Spend our gold and head to our top side to get ready to fend off enemy jungle invade attempts. This is good because by basing, we not only defend our camps, but are also able to path back to the lane we just killed for a repeat gank. Playing for full clear. In the instance we conclude there are no high percent level 3 gank opportunities, we continue clearing, crossing to our other side of the jungle. Remember, once you start walking to either raptors or wolves through mid, there is no turning back. And again, we are panning our camera to the next set of lanes in our proximity. We are trying to gather information on what we are going to do after our 6th camp and with our spare tempo. Before we get into the bonus part 5, let's go over a quick summary of what we have learned in this video so far. Firstly, we lock in and start creating a game plan using VGM to decide where we're most likely to get kills. Then, picking our jungle path, making sure to consider any potential invade threats, both offensive or defensive. Secondly, we run out of the gate and stand at our starting position. And depending on what our plan is, use our trinket accordingly. Third, as we clear our camps, we are actively looking at our minimap and champion HUD prompts, camera panning when necessary without it hindering our clear speed. Fourth, based on the information gathered, we start to create plans ahead of time, whether we will level 3 gank or what we will do with our spare tempo after full clearing. Fifth, after making our play or using up our spare tempo, we take note of the in-game timer, making sure to keep good tempo and be back at our first spawning camp. Concluding this video out, and seeing as this is a first clear guide, not a second, third, or fourth, we will keep this last part short and sweet just as a little bonus. Step 5. Our second clear. Goal, look to punish any advantage we gained from our first clear. Like the goal states, we want to make a big focus in our second clear to punish any advantage we gained in the first clear. This could be a repeat gank on a lane that we burned flash. It could be retaking the enemy raptors that we counter jungled in the first round. The importance of this is to make sure we have a plan. This is going to stop us from floating around and getting distracted. This now brings us to the end of this first clear guide. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you have made it this far, I'm expecting dominant first clears for games to come. For more guides like this, make sure to let me know by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing, and I will see you guys all in the next. Happy jungle gapping.